I just ran to the mailbox, right?
It's still hot off the printer.
Yeah, and I got this book. I just picked it up from the mailbox, and it's called Letter to the 8-Year-Old Me. And it's written by you.
It's written by me.
Latonya Perossier, right? Yeah. And we said that's a New Orleans last name.
It
right?
is. My
husband. It's his. Yeah, I saw that ring.
I know. I almost had to turn down my lights.
Finger, yeah, you broke your finger. I was like,
right? All right. Well, I'm gonna have to take a screenshot of that thing and be like, "Hey, honey."
Oh, this the one.
I want one like this.
Look, see that one? Like that's
if my finger ain't blinding people,
nah, he gonna look at that and have to think for a minute. Like, that's gonna be that's our 20-year. You know, that's gonna be the 20-year joint.
He's not getting any more. He's not getting any more rings.
Yeah. So let's go back. I can't wait to get into y'all, you meeting him and stuff like that. But this book is because I would ask, like, if you wrote a book on your life, where would you start? But you kind of wrote a book on your life already. Yeah. Where did you start?
I started with that 8-year-old girl because that's where it all began. So the funny thing is I wrote that book because a friend told me to write a letter to my 8-year-old self. Mm-hmm. I had been going through a whole bunch of stuff. And so one of my girlfriends came to visit and we went on a vacation and we were laying on the beach and just talking. And she was like, "Yo, you've been acting really weird lately. I need to talk to you when we get back to the hotel." So we sat in the hotel and I just kind of poured it all on her. Here's it. And she said, "You need to write that little girl a letter." Mm. And so from there, I said, "How do you write a letter to your 8-year-old self?" Because it sounds interesting, but how do you do that? Like, what do you say? And literally, y'all, when I tell you that book was written by God, because I am not a writer. Mm-hmm. It would be like 3:00 in the morning and I would wake up at 3 a.m. and I would write. And I would write till about 5 and then go back to sleep. Mm. Mm. And it just kept happening.
Yeah.
And then I just poured it all out. And it was trauma, dramatic, life, crazy, family, love, children. It was just so much. And I had to figure out. And I was not going to publish it because it was too much of my personal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was too much of my truth. It was too much of my vulnerability. It was too much of things that made me cry. Uh-huh. And I was like, I don't know if I want people to know this, especially not people that I love, to really know what I struggle with.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know what? Maybe it can help somebody else. Because it helped me release it all. Because once I wrote that book, I released it all. When I tell you, girl, I cried so hard and so long after I wrote that book. Like, it was just a release of, it's done. Mm-hmm. Whether I published it or not didn't matter. It was just, I got out of me what I needed to get out of me. That was always, when you operate in trauma so long, you don't even know what operating in just peace looks like.
Yep.
And just once I released it all, it was like this great peace. And it just felt good to just cry it all out. And I was done. And then I said, okay, maybe this book can help somebody else. Maybe. Yeah. And when I published it, I have this letter that this woman wrote me. I still can't read this letter out loud to this day because it makes me bawl every time I read it. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about her trauma and how my book made her, like, I don't know, it made her really just deal with it. Like, and her trauma was so intense. When she told me her story in this letter she wrote me, I was like, God, like, that's all you can do is hope that and even if it helped one person, then I did my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they say when you go inward, you connect outward, right?
Oh,
So like,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
that's a like kind of like a creative, because I was gonna ask if you are creative. So I've always been a creative, and I like that's kind of how I create by just going inward. You start to realize that you really do connect with way more people like that when you kind of connect with yourself.
Yeah.
So who was this 8-year-old? When I start going through these pages and I start getting a grasp of who you were as this 8-year-old girl, who were you?
She was very sweet. She I as an 8-year-old, I always wanted to be something.
Uh-huh.
Like I wanted even at 8 years old, I remember looking through magazines, and I grew up extremely poor. I remember my mother used to have to get our clothes from the Goodwill.
Yeah. Where was
So,
this at?
and we started out in Louisiana, and then my
Okay.
mother left my dad and moved to Texas. And so we
Okay.
lost everything in the move from Louisiana to Texas. The U-Haul overturned, and my mother lost everything.
Oh, wow.
So when we got to Texas, we had nothing. So
Wow.
it was the journey of trying to get back where we needed to be. And being this 8-year-old, I used to look at magazines and be like, I'm going to wear this kind of stuff when I get big. I'm going to get me a job where I can afford to drive this kind of car. I was that girl. I had my own business at the age of 12.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
My mother she managed these apartment complexes. And I wrote in crayon, because I wasn't playing by my business. I wrote in crayon that I was a cleaning service. And I put it on the little board in our apartment complex, and people paid me $20 to come and clean their houses. And I would clean it because my mother was a Louisiana woman. Cleaning was what we did every Saturday. Everybody got up.
Music playing in the background and everything.
Music playing, the Al Green's playing in the back. And you had to clean from top to bottom. So that was what I knew how to do. And I would make money cleaning people's houses. And if they wanted me to start dinner for them, it was an extra $5.
Yeah.
So, but that 8-year-old girl lived in a lot of trauma. I started being molested at the age of 8 years old.
Was it a family member?
Started out.
Oh, so it was more than one person.
Yes, and also my godfather. And in my mind, his wife knew. And I don't know if she knew or not, but in my mind, she knew.
Yeah. And then so before we start this conversation, you give me a little bit of grace because
absolutely
of I'm very empathetic, but I also I'm very inquisitive too. So sometimes those things conflict with each other. Right. But how'd you feel about you when this started? Like, how'd you feel about yourself?
I hated myself. I was trying to figure out how to be unattractive to grown men. Like,
sad.
I didn't understand. And so I started doing things like not taking a bath because I felt like, if I smell, then they won't want me.
Yeah.
Right. And this happened from the age of 8 to about the age of, I think the last time I was molested, I was 12. And so my anger was towards my family because I felt like they didn't protect me. I felt like they should have known. And even though I never told anybody, because what do little Black kids learn early off? You're a tattletale.
Snitches.
Snitches. Why are you snitching on people? So predators, they use that to their advantage. So I never said a word. And all I kept doing was doing different things, trying to make myself unattractive to grown men, and didn't understand how this grown man could find my small, petite body attractive. So I would hide, or, it was strange, but nobody noticed. Nobody in my family noticed. And I get it. Everybody had their own things going on. And I write about it in my book that I blamed my family because I truly did.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
You know what I mean? But everybody had so much going on. And back then people didn't really, I don't think they really, you always hear about the uncles in the family, don't go by Uncle Charlie, or Uncle Charlie because he gonna touch on you. In our community, we don't talk about that enough. We don't face that enough. We don't have real conversations about that. And even though, it normally is the uncle, but it's everybody. It was the cousin. It was the man who you don't even know. It was your aunt's friend. It was because nobody pays attention to the kids in the room. And so because people don't pay attention, the predators get to pay attention.
Yeah, even what I know y'all probably saw Kanye, what happened, like what he said he did to his cousin. He was molesting his cousin at a young age for his male cousin. He was molesting his male cousin like from a lot of years. I think he said like 14 years. I don't want to misquote him, but he was molesting his male cousin. And in our households, and I'm talking about Black families, that, like you just said, it goes unnoticed a lot. Like we talk about other, just I'm speaking right now to the listener as a Black man, we talk about like other households, other families and other stuff, but those things happen in our families a lot. That type of trauma, sexual trauma happens a lot in our families. And sometimes people know about it, and everybody they on a hush about it, or you feel like you're going to get in trouble, you're going to get beat, you're going to get punished and stuff like that. So I could just feel for you as an 8-year-old because you're not socially mature enough. You're not like actually mature enough. You're not emotionally mature enough to really even understand what's going on, know? So like, what was the setting? What was the initial setting when this first happened? Was it like a family get together and you were upstairs and one of those type of things?
So the first thing was my aunt's friend. My aunt was a professional pool player, and I always wanted to learn to play pool, and she was teaching me to play. So I went to her house because I wanted to learn to play, and she had people over, and there was this man in the room. And nobody was really paying attention to me because she already was doing her thing. She was already playing and doing her thing with her friends. And he started to talk to me. And he just politely walked me to the back room and molested me right there. I got up, I put my clothes back on and went home. Never said a word.
Yeah, and I'm assuming they were drinking. It was like a party thing going on.
Yep.
And did he say anything? Did he like threaten you or anything?
He was like, "This is our secret. This is what people do when they love each other." And I don't even know you.
Right.
I don't know you. I don't even know you. But he said, "This is our secret. And this is what people do when they love each other." And I remember that because I was thinking, I don't know you. But in my mind, and so as an older adult, I started to blame myself. I was like, you must have wanted it. Because your mind doesn't, I don't know if your mind plays tricks or what, but I remember blaming myself. I remember blaming my 8-year-old self. And a part of that was forgiving myself for blaming myself.
Yeah, because how did that affect you just to kind of go up a little bit, how did that affect you as a teenager, like a 16, 17-year-old?
Listen, a boy can touch me. A boy can touch me. And as much as I wanted to like boys, and I liked boys, at 14 years old, I remember going, and also I went to go see my friend, and it was kind of late. I went to go see her, and her apartment was on one side, and then there was where I was going to go home was on the other side, and I had to walk through this abandoned apartment area. And I've always been afraid of snakes as a little girl, just scared of snakes. So when I'm walking this abandoned area, I'm looking down because I don't want to step on a snake. I'm looking down, and all of a sudden someone snatches me, and I'm a teenager. I'm 14 years old when this happens. Someone snatches me. And I immediately grab onto the first thing I see, which was a railing in this old abandoned apartment complex. And I'm holding onto the railing and I'm screaming because I can't see anybody, but I know somebody's pulling me. And I'm screaming and I'm screaming. They pry my hands. There's 3 boys, teenage boys. I go to school with these boys. They pry my hands from the rail. They drag me into the apartment complex. These boys commenced to try to rape me. Teenage boys. I'm 14 years old. They're trying to rape me. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
There's no way they know I see their face. Like, are they going to let me go back to school after trying to do this? I'm fighting with everything in me. They take off my shirt. They're pulling on me. I'm kicking. I'm screaming. There's broken glass on the floor. They take my shirt off. All I have on is a bra. I'm sliding on the floor. My back's cut up. I find my way. I get a stick and I start swinging the stick at them. I don't even want to tell you the gross stuff they did before that happens. But I'm fighting them away. I back out of the apartment complex. I take off running. I run all the way home.
Yeah.
I get home. I don't tell my mother anything. I just go home and get in the tub. And just...
Wow.
Yeah, in my mind, later on, I thought I told her. But I realized I never told my mother anything. I never told her anything. I never told anybody that.
Yeah.
Was it like a state of shock type of thing? Or was it like just accepting life, like this is just a normal part of life because you had gone through so much trauma up until that point?
You know, it may have been both because I was so scared that I ran home and I literally ran about 8 miles.
Yeah.
I ran about 8 miles home, but I was on the track team, so that was nothing for me. I get home and for whatever reason, my mind told me that I told my mother. But I never told her. I never told her. I got in the tub, I cleaned myself up and went to school. And I had to see those boys.
Yeah, but we like as kids, again, we not like emotionally mature enough to understand things, so we blame ourselves for things, and we think we come up short in our parents. Like I said before, it was a period of time, like a moment in time where I was bullied. I would have never told my mom, and I definitely would have not have told my dad, because if I would have told my dad, like, yo, I got bullied, I feel like my dad would have been mad at me. You know what I mean? So I totally like as a young kid, like we try our best to protect our parents from
we do.
Our reality. The harsh life that we, as kids, go through a lot of shit. And that's why I'm looking at I got nephews, my nephew 20, and I can't imagine some of the things he went through in this day and age. Like kids go through a lot of stuff.
Especially
so now
these days.
Yeah. So yeah, especially, it's way different these days. So now between 8 and 14, it's other events that happens as well, right?
Yeah.
But never this guy again, right? Never this guy.
No, I never. And it's so crazy. I tell people all the time, I can't even tell you what that man looked like.
Yeah.
I cannot even tell you what he looked like. I wouldn't even be able to tell you. I can tell you what my uncle by marriage looked like. Because at 29 years old, he passed away. And the only reason I came to his funeral was because my family asked me to come home.
Yeah.
They never knew he was molesting me.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And here's the crazy part. I get to the funeral. I'm struggling at that age. I'm really struggling because it's really all that stuff, the 8-year-old stuff, the 14-year-old stuff, all that stuff is like really, because now I'm old enough to understand what was happening and how it was happening. So I'm struggling in my life, and I'm in the Navy at the time. And I get to the funeral and I have an aunt, and this is an aunt by marriage. She was an evangelist. She says to me, Latonya, because she hadn't seen me in years. She says, Latonya? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, oh my goodness. You've grown up to be such a beautiful young woman. You were such an ugly little girl. What she didn't know is I was struggling with that ugly little girl inside of me. Because that ugly little girl had so much trauma and so much hurt. And for her to say that to me in that moment was the most hurtful thing that I could have ever heard. And I just stared at her. And I didn't have anything to say. And I was just like, wow.
Right.
You know, and it's those moments that I remember, like, come on.
Right.
Like, our
Like, this
community
why I don't come home.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I ain't never up here.
Come home, you ignorant fools.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm already struggling with all this demon I got inside of me, and then you add to it? You waffle.
Yeah. So now, did they find out, like, with your family? Are they finding out some of this stuff as when the book comes out?
Yep.
So what?
Crazy. My brother. So I never even told them I was writing the book because I didn't want anybody to be like, you better say this and you better tell the truth. Because you know how family is.
Yeah.
So I told no one that I was writing the book. No one. My husband knew I was writing it, but my husband didn't know half the stuff that he learned by reading it. So when he read it, he was distraught from the book. He was like, baby, you didn't tell me any of this. And I was like, how do I tell you this?
How do
I tell you any of this? My brother, he was reading the book and he had to stop reading it.
I can understand. I could totally understand.
It was like, we need to talk. We definitely need to talk. And I mean, yeah, we do. Because in the book, I blame y'all. Like y'all were my big brothers, and I get it. You know, during that time, everybody had their own stuff that they were dealing with, and it was during the time it was drugs, and in the 80s, drugs everywhere. But still, I was a little girl that needed somebody to look after me, and I didn't have that.
Did you prepare for your family to read this? Like, did you have to get into like, yo, I know that now that this book is out, I gotta be ready for these conversations to come?
Oh yeah. Because I knew once they read it, it was gonna be some real conversations. You can't read that book and not want to talk.
Yeah.
Believe me, when you read it, you're gonna be like, oh. Because when I wrote it, I was like, oh, I cringed. In the beginning, when I first wrote it, I cringed every time somebody said they got my book. I cringed because I knew that they were about to read a part of me that was horrifying. And I didn't know how to, I knew that I had to just say, you know what? It is what it is. Captain Alada bought my book and he read it and he was like, Chief, man, you're strong because what I read in your book is rough. I said,
yeah. And it's just crazy what we wear, right? Like throughout our life, like everything you wear, and just how good it. Like when people say, like, I don't look like what I've been through.
Hello.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's the truth. Like you don't. That's why when I go to schools and I talk to people, because people be like, man, like I've had people say, you're so inspiring. I said, you know why? I said, because I pray that there's not a little girl or a young man in this audience that is enduring what I did. And so I want to be so compassionate and so thoughtful and so open and to them. I want them to know that whatever they're going through, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I make sure that every young person in that room feels like I got you. Because nobody did that for me.
Yeah.
Nobody, when I was at school and people would come and speak at the school, nobody made me feel like I could just be like, I'm going to be okay. I was always on edge. I was always like, what's my next step and how do I get out of here?
Yeah. And then you harboring, like you got this big weight, right?
Big lie and big weight and just, people are asking you, are you okay? And you're lying and saying, yes. No, I'm not okay. I got so much going on right now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see it like impacting like everything, you do. It's like I'm gonna give an example. It's gonna be a weird example, right? It's gonna be really weird. But it's like if you see an alien in your basement when you like 6, right? If you see an alien in your and you saw it and it was a real experience, your whole life after that now is like kind of like the course is charted by like knowing that these things exist. Like, so when you're dealing with your son, like when you're dealing with I'm sure dealing with your son is impacted by this.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Your time in the Navy is impacted by this. So even before I go there, what I want to ask, I told y'all like the exple was going to be really weird, right? But I just read like some declassified alien file earlier. So what I want to go back to is like love, right? Like 2 things, and right, we'll get a little adult like is if you could share a little bit of it. But the first one is like, when did you open up to the idea of love?
Truthfully, honestly, I don't know. I kind of pretended that I knew what love was. Because to me, what my example of love was sex. That's that's what was taught to me at 8 years old. That's love. Somebody has sex with me.
On the first encounter, he said it love. When people love each other.
This is what people do when they love each other. So that was my idea of what love was. And so I was messing it up. I had no idea what real love was at all. So I was going through life just
in the streets. It was in the streets. I said that to one of my sellers before. She's like, "What you say, Chief?" I said, like, "You're in the streets." Hot girl. I was like, "You having a hot girl summer?" Like, "Hey, I'm just trying to connect."
Anybody get a Zimeo? Trying to connect.
And then, but we close. We close. She was like, "Yeah, I was having a hot girl summer." It's like, "Nice to see you, Chief." So, all right. So,
because you don't know what love is, because you're not understanding what real love is, and I had to sit down with myself, and it was later on because I kept picking the wrong end.
Yeah. Well, you wasn't looking for love.
I wasn't. I really wasn't. And so, you just kind of moving through life. I was just moving through life, and I'm like, this is not good. Like, I literally have to stop and say, no more.
Yeah.
What is it? What does real love look like? And I had to stop myself and just kind of, I made my husband date me. I said, I can't keep going like this. He had to date me. I had to figure this love thing out, and it needed to be real.
Yeah.
And that's how I figured out. And baby, that's late in the game. I was in my 40s.
But you also had to, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you also had to learn how to love yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I did? Because that's a hard, but when I looked in the mirror, all I saw was that 8-year-old girl, ugly, molested, just all the bad things. Every time I looked at myself, I always saw all the bad stuff. So my girlfriend, she made this analogy with me. She said, "You know what, Tanya?" She said, "You cover up all the ugly in you with all the pretty." She said, "Your hair always has to be perfect. Your clothes have to be perfect. Your nails, everything has to be so perfect about you." She said, "Because you're trying to cover up all that ugly." And she made me sit down and think about it. And I was like, you know what? She is absolutely correct. Everything about me had to be perfect. My hair, my nails, my clothes, everything. There could not be a flaw in anything.
Because it's armor.
Right. Because I kept looking at that ugliness that was underneath it to me.
Yeah.
And I had to stop. And I literally, all my clothes off, standing in the mirror, I said, "You're going to find something nice to say about yourself, and you're going to stay here until you do it."
Yeah.
And I just had to start saying good things about me, what I saw about me that was good. And I just kept doing it because every time I looked in the mirror, 2.2 seconds, I could tell you all the bad. All the bad about me in 2.2 seconds. It literally took me, I don't know how long to start saying and looking at me and looking at everything about me and saying, you got good stuff going on right here. This looks good. You look good. This is pretty. And it may sound simple, but it wasn't. It was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to look at myself and say that I had good stuff. Not because it was because all of the ugly that I had experienced in all my life that made me always feel like everything about me was just ugly.
Yeah. So now, when do you, and you made me think of a million questions, and I have them, and I'm about to ask them. But when do you start to? It's a weird kind of, it's a weird way to word it, I think. But when do you start to realize that you're not making love? And I'm talking about sex for the listeners. Like we all adults here, right? But when do you realize that, like, even the way you making, because I'm assuming it gets to a point where you like, man, I'm not even like really making love the right way. Like it's not romance. It's not like, so I'm like, so when does
question. So I learned at an early age, sex is powerful, right? Because it had been presented to me. So I learned at an early age, sex is powerful. So what do you think I did?
Used it.
Used it. Very powerful. It was powerful. Sex is powerful. And when you don't understand how it's supposed to be, because you were never taught the real way love and sex and all it's supposed to be, you use it as a weapon. And you get good at it. You get good at it because you know what you're doing, because somebody taught you at 8 years old what that looks like.
Yeah.
And you have to, and I had to stop and say, okay, it can't be a weapon, because that's not what it's meant for. Yeah. It's not meant for a weapon, but you have to teach yourself that. You have to teach yourself that, hey man, you can't keep going like this, because it's not good for anybody. You're not winning, even when you think you're winning. And listen, I thought I was winning, because I was winning, but I wasn't winning. I wasn't winning because I wasn't getting what I really wanted, which was somebody to truly see me and love me with all the ugliness that I had going on, with all of the drama and the trauma that I had. I wanted them to still see me and love me, and it'd be okay. And that's hard, because when you tell people your truth, some people can't handle it.
Yeah. Especially like that kind of truth.
No, they can't handle that. And when I wrote my book and my husband read, I gave him the first copy to let him read it. And I thought I was going to be divorced after that.
Yeah. I mean,
I just knew he was going to be like, yo, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
But he was like, he processed it, and he was like, listen, I'm here. Whenever you need to talk, whatever you need to do, I got you. I said, okay. He's a keeper.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to get time machines for, stories you hear, time machine. Like, yo, where the time machine at? I go back there and straighten this out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Well, I mean, and it's so crazy, because I was at his funeral, and I remember looking at him and remember thinking, I hope you suffered so bad. I was like, I know that's wrong, God. I know that I should not feel that way, but I hope this man suffered so bad.
Yeah.
He deserves it. He deserved to have suffered. Deserves it. All of them. They deserve it. I hope, and I know it sounds horrible, but and we want to say Christian like, but they weren't Christian like.
Yeah. Yep. And then what you don't know is how many other, like, whenever I hear stories like that, like how many other victims, do these people have?
And I say in there, I said, I don't know if predators understand how much they change the trajectory of a person's life when they do that. Either they don't know or they don't care.
Yeah.
Because once you introduce an innocent, God gives us innocence. When you're born and you're coming up, man, you got nothing but innocence. And for someone to take that from you so early in your life, they change the whole trajectory of your life. Like, they don't know, they don't understand the impact that has on who you are as a person.
Right.
Yeah, you lose a bit of yourself. And I don't see how you don't. Yeah, and I don't see how you don't, like, in this, for all intents, I don't see how somebody doesn't blame themselves. Like, I totally understand when people blame themselves when those things happen, because it's something that you feel like, man, if I wouldn't have went down this, because even as adults, like, you talk about being young and going through this and like having to like live with this and blame yourself. But even as adults, like, if this happens to an adult, like if they get raped or something like that, they never the same. I saw a 23-year-old, after something happened with her, she was never the same. She lost her husband. She blamed herself. It took her a long time to recover or rebound from this.
And I watch it a lot of times. I watch these women, and it's always like, you see them before, like, how you watch the show and you'll see like a before picture of them before they were assaulted and things happen. And then afterwards they look weird. Like their hair is blue, or they just go.
They lost a little bit of themselves.
And it's like, there has to be something. Like I remember when I started going to counseling, because I finally had to go to counseling for it. And I was going to counseling, and I was talking to my counselor about it, and I was telling the whole story about it. And she was like, you were lost. And I said, yeah. But I thank God that I didn't, because a lot of them turn to drugs. And I think a lot of times what they do is turn to drugs. And I think the military saved me from that.
Yeah.
I think joining the military is what saved me from becoming that statistic that I see on TV when I see someone who is saying, somebody assaulted me and hurt me so bad that they then their life
go down this downward spiral.
It's so bad. And I honestly, the Navy don't know. I really, my Navy career, I tell people all the time, because, when I talk to young people, they always say, you're only going to talk about the good things. I'm like, listen, in life, there's always going to be good and bad. I said, that's just life. I said, you are always going to work for somebody, or you're going to have your own business. And even when you have your own business, you are working for your customers. So you're always going to be working for somebody. I said, but let me tell you something. You have to figure out what you're doing is going to make you have way more good days than bad days. Because that's it. We go through life trying to be something that's outstanding, amazing, and oh my God, I'm going to be this kind of person. I strive to make sure that I have way more good days than bad days.
Yeah, and when your tour is over, I mean, like when you 2 tours from the tour 2 tours ago, you kind of don't remember the bad days. You just remember the good day. I tell people man, I had to dig deep to think about the bullshit that we went through at this command. It's not easy. You remember the great moments. So I wanna go into the Navy with you, but before that, it's lingering, and I'm thinking about it. Where was your dad throughout all this?
So my mom left my dad, and we moved to.
Oh yeah, y'all moved. Yeah,
we moved to Texas. I was 8.
Yeah, and you never saw your dad again?
Yeah, he would come and visit. They tried to get back together, but that, you know how that works.
Yeah.
But my dad was my favorite person, yo. That was my dog. Because he spoiled me.
Yeah, and he was also long distance, so he wasn't in your household when all this was happening.
No. I think he would probably kill somebody, especially if he was.
Is he still around?
No, my dad died on my birthday.
Oh, this year?
My 21st birthday.
Oh, your 21st birthday.
Oh, your 21st birthday.
So that was last year. No, I'm just saying.
I know, right?
So he never knew. He never knew.
No, he never knew anything about it. My mother, I won't lie. So my mother has dementia, and when I wrote the book, she was getting early onset dementia, and I would never, because I don't want her to feel like she failed me as a mom.
Yeah.
I would never allow her to read my book. So she knows nothing of any of it. And now, her full-blown dementia, she thinks she's pregnant, y'all.
Oh, Lord. Jesus.
Hey, have you...
Hold on.
It's crazy how we can go from laughing to something serious.
I know, right?
Have you spoken to your dad in spirit, like a spiritual conversation about any of this?
No, that's a good idea. And I think I should. I really do think I should, because I'm sure he watched down and saw this and was like, that's my baby girl. Because truth be told, my brothers and sisters hated me because I was his favorite. So one of my brothers tried to kill me.
Oh, man.
Lord.
Man.
My brother tried to suffocate me, y'all.
With the pillow? With a pillow?
Oh, Lord.
He was like, oh, you got to go. You spoiled. You got to go.
Was he the next? Like, would he have been the youngest if it not been for you?
He was. So it was my little sister, me, my brother, then him. But he was like, I'm gonna do it for the family.
Dude watching too much Hand That Rocks the Cradle or some wow.
He was like, I'm gonna do it for the family. Nobody else gonna do it. I got y'all. Hold on.